We've been talking about marriage in Genesis, talking about its basis and purpose. We've covered the idea that marriage is something that God created, and therefore it is not an invention of man. It's not a product of evolution, nor is it a construct of the state. It is, in fact, God's creation for us. Therefore, we don't get to create marriage the way we want. We have to look into the Scriptures and see what God Himself tells us about marriage. One of the things that He has told us is that marriage is based on the idea that we are in God's image. And so we talked about how that image manifests itself between men and women differently. Adam, when he is created, is given work to do. He's to keep the garden. He is the subject of God's command. One who receives the command not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He has dominion over the animals. He categorizes them. And then when God creates Eve, He categorizes her. He calls her woman. And in the Hebrew, literally, Isha, meaning a female man, a female human. And so He recognizes that she is human, that she is him, and yet she is opposite of him. Adam's role in the New Testament is very specific. In Romans 5, he is the one man whose sin brings death upon all the human race. In 1 Timothy 2, he is the first of God's creation. And in Ephesians 5, he is analogous to the role of Jesus Christ and Christ to the church. We talked about Eve, and Eve is the helper, the Ezra. She is the one who's designed for the man and not the other way around, 1 Timothy 2. Adam is created first, and the woman is created for man, not man for the woman. So, my terms, you may have different terms, different words, but my terms is that Adam is created as, in the sense, the one who is responsible. And that doesn't mean responsible in terms of mature. It means responsible as in you are the one who answers for what goes on. Okay. When I say that Eve is dependent, I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form that she is helpless or less intelligent. Rather, that she is the one who responds to Adam. Adam is the responsible one. He's got the task. He's the one who's in charge. He's the one who has to answer to God. Eve is dependent upon Adam. So what does that marriage look like? Well, in Genesis 2:25, we read this. 2:25, not 3:25. That a man should leave, verse 24, a man shall leave his father and mother, be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Now that's more than just a statement that they weren't wearing clothes. It's the idea that they had nothing to be embarrassed about with each other. They're not hiding anything. There's complete transparency. It would be interesting to find out, I don't think we could fully, but if we could find out how many times spouses bend the truth, deceive, cover the truth, or outright lie to each other on a daily basis. We do it all the time in human society, and we do it as husband and wife. Full and complete transparency is something we just don't know anything about in this life. And we do it so often that we don't even realize we're doing it. Adam and Eve don't have that problem. There are no arguments. There's no disagreements. There's nothing but love. There's no sin, and so there's nothing to hide. You know, honey, did you eat the last cookie? No, I didn't eat it. That's a silly illustration, but it gets the point. There's nothing to hide. There's absolutely nothing to conceal. And so there's no lies. Nothing but absolute pure honesty. We know nothing of what that looked like. Adam and Eve have the only perfect marriage ever recorded, and it doesn't last very long. But they had it for a while. Okay. So, what happened to this perfect marriage? Well, let's go to Genesis chapter 3, if you will. I'm going to read the pertinent passage out loud, and then we'll discuss some things. Genesis 3, verse 1. Now, the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. Okay? Let's stop there for a moment. How does Eve assess the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? The serpent is calling her attention to it. How does she evaluate it? What does she see?
You mean that it's good for fruit?
Okay, 1. The tree is good. It's good for food. Okay? The fruit is not poisonous. It's not gonna, hey, who knows what it was? An apple, a fig, a pomegranate, I don't know. But she looks at it and it's like, okay, this is not deadly nightshade. In fact, it produces good food. Ergo, what? Tree might actually be good. Okay. How else does she assess it?
Desirable to make one wise.
I'm sorry?
Desirable to make one wise.
Desirable for wisdom. Meaning, if I eat of this tree, I will be wise. And that's a good thing, isn't it? That's desirable. So the food is good. It's not a poisonous tree. It's not a poisonous apple. Okay? This isn't, which one is it? Snow White and the apple? Okay. This isn't Snow White going on here. The food is, it's good fruit, and I can be wise. Is there anything wrong with being wise? Okay? So, it's pleasant to the eye. It looks good. There's no thorns or thistles. There's no, green, ugly stuff seeping from the bark. It's not an ugly tree. It's a beautiful tree. It looks good. The food is good. And I can be wise. What is her reference point as she looks at this idea of the tree?
Me. For herself.
Me. Self. That tree looks good to me. The food, it looks good. It can make me wise. Her reference point is the me. Now, This is not just Eve. We're going to see that Adam has the same problem later on, but from different perspectives. And that's what we're going to get at. Eric,
Just
you
expand
had
that
that
more.
first thing, John.
Yeah, she's putting herself in the center, and she's moving God eventually to the opposition, right? Now, it's my assessment as opposed to God's assessment or what He told me to do. That's so now.
Okay.
That's exactly where Satan wants her to be.
She's also added to the commandment that God gave them, because she adds, "You shall not touch it, or you will die." God only said, "You shall not eat of it."
Yeah, and we don't know where that comes from. The adding to the commandment, "You shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die." Does Adam do that? I mean, Adam is the one given the commandment, "Don't eat the fruit." Does Adam say to Eve, "Look, just don't even touch it"? And then Eve is repeating what she heard, or does Eve add to it? We really don't know the source of that addition. What is interesting also to me is that the woman said to the serpent in verse 2, "We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden." She doesn't describe it as the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She just simply describes it as that tree. God tells Adam that it's the tree that has the knowledge of good and evil. You eat of this fruit, and you will be deciding for yourself what is good and what is evil. You take of this fruit, and you will decide, oh, this is right, that's wrong. I think that's right, I think that's wrong. And taking upon yourself the role of moral authority. I assume Adam knows this. Eve doesn't mention it. It's an argument from silence. Is that because Eve didn't get the idea, or because Adam never mentioned it to her? It is at least possible that Adam says, "You see that tree? Don't eat it, don't touch it. Okay, let's go." Which, I mean, face it, sounds like a man, right? Okay? But we don't know that. So, how does Eve think about the serpent's claims? Well, first of all, God says, "Don't, or you will die." The serpent says, "You're not going to die." And Eve begins to treat these two statements as if they are competitive or competing hypotheses. Well, they both can't be true. So I have to decide which one is right. That's where the alarm should go off. Ding, 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 ding.
What about just a talking snake? That should have been an alarm, right?
A talking snake?
Yeah, that should. Did all the animals talk, or just this one?
It happens in Harry Potter.
Whoa.
Why can't it happen in Genesis 2? You know?
That should have been a red flag. Never talking to an animal.
Yeah, let's assume that it should have been, but yeah, okay. Somewhere along the line, Eve says, okay, God says this, or at least Adam tells me God says this, and Satan says the opposite. And Eve decides that she has to decide. And that is the beginning. In fact, I would say that is the sin. When Eve says, oh, I have to decide this. No, you don't. Is it wrong to commit adultery? Yes. Okay. How do you know? God said so. Are you going to do a massive psychological study of all marriages in the United States to find out whether or not it might be possible that adultery is actually a positive thing?
Somebody else is doing that.
Someone else is already doing that. That's correct. Why? Because they think they have the right to decide. But a Christian says, no, wait a minute. God's already answered that question. Boom, done. Eve doesn't do that. She says, Satan says this, God says this, I have to decide. How does she decide? Looks good. It's not poisonous. And it would make me wise. What if Satan is right? Can I trust God? Satan is telling me that God is actually protecting his own turf. God is telling us what to do. God is telling us what's right and wrong. God is telling us to go work in the garden. What if Satan's right and God is actually being this self-protective dictator? So my safest option here is figure this out myself. Why does Eve want to do that? Let's have some discussion, please. Why does Eve want to say, I don't know if I can trust God, I don't know. Okay, she's already made the decision that she's putting these two as competing hypotheses. But when she makes her decision as to what she's going to do, what's her motive? What's she thinking? What's her motive? All opinions are good here.
I want to be in control.
Okay, one, I want to be in control. Eric.
Yeah, along that same vein, she's also not opposing God or separating herself from God, but also from Adam. Because he's so at this point, I assume she knows that he's, so to say, the head, and now she's separating herself from there. Like it's taking control, putting herself, maybe elevating herself above Adam, perhaps. That's very odd.
Yeah, I think that happens back here at this step. You are right. You are exactly right. It happens back here. And so her motivation, this is what she has decided to do. My question is why? And one of them is control.
Fear?
Fear. And I think this is the big one, and I think I can prove it from 1 Peter 3. But it's not fear as in I'm scared. You have to understand this. This is not that kind of fear. This is not phobia. Okay? This is the fear that maybe something bad is going to happen. And the safest way to keep it from happening is if I decide.
Which is why we usually want control.
Yes. So, husbands, there will be times when you will look at your wife and you will say, well, all she wants to do is run the thing. She just wants to run everything. Okay? One of the reasons you resent that is because you are treating her as if she were a competing male wanting to have dominance over you. That is not why she wants to control things. She does not think like you. She's not wanting to control things so that she can be the dictator. She likes to control things because she's not persuaded that you have thought through all of the options, and if you don't think through all of the options, something bad is going to happen, or could happen. So let's cover all the bases, let's think through all the options, and if you're not doing that, husband, I'm going to help you do it.
So would that mean that there's actually three hypotheses? What God said, what Satan said, and what her husband said?
Possibly.
And then that being the motivation to be like God and have right.
I think the main thing I want to point out here is that Eve is acting out of a sense of insecurity. The apprehension, that's a good word, the apprehension of what might happen if the control of her life is in the hands of somebody else. 1 Peter 3 very specifically talks about fear in the role of Sarah. And we'll get there eventually.
Isn't it also usually assumed Adam was with her when the serpent was tempting her, or at least nearby?
Answer, yes. The role of Adam being with her. And there's a two-part aspect to that. One, Eve doesn't ask Adam for advice. And that's the question down here. Whom does Eve ask for advice or guidance? Well, not Adam. Not God. Not even the serpent. She doesn't turn to the serpent and say, well, what do you think I ought to do? Satan is not trying to get Eve to submit to the serpent, to him. He's just trying to get her to act on her own. That's it. Now, the interesting thing is, it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Right? So, what does Eve take to herself? The right to determine good and evil. Before she ever takes the bite, what the tree represents is symbolic of what Eve has already done before she ever plucks the fruit. Do y'all see that?
Can you repeat that sentence one more time?
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat that sentence one more time? I'm trying to write it down. Can you repeat that sentence? Before she...
Oh, does she sin before she sins?
Yeah. No, can you just repeat exactly what you said?
We thought that was a mic drop moment and we want to write
Okay,
it
you're
down.
doing this dynamic thinking thing.
Yeah.
No,
Before she
actually,
even
your
takes the
voice,
bite.
Dana, your voice is in a range that I'm having trouble hearing, and I forgot my hearing aids.
Before she takes a bite. Before she ever takes a bite. Say that again.
Yes, before she ever takes a bite of the fruit, she has already taken to herself the knowledge of good and evil.
Thank you.
She has already decided that she will decide what is good and what is evil. So, put it another way, the sin was in the heart before it was ever in the hand, which is what happens to all of us, right? When we sin, it's here before it's ever an action. So the irony is that the tree actually symbolizes what Eve had already done. Is that?
Yeah. It's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's go. Adam. What should Adam have done that day?
Told the serpent to shut his blaspheming mouth.
I'm sorry, what?
Told the serpent to shut his blaspheming mouth.
Tell the serpent to shut his blaspheming mouth. I'm a little more radical. I think he should have pulled out his Kimber 45 and blown that serpent right out. Okay? And assuming there are no side arms at that point in time, you know, maybe a good thick stick. Something.
Stones.
Rocks. Yeah. Yeah, Brett.
He should have answered with scripture what God had said.
Adam is, and somebody's already pointed this out, but I'll go ahead and do it again. Adam is with her. Now that means that Eve doesn't turn to Adam and say, Adam, what should we do? True, she doesn't. But Adam's right there, and he lets it happen. He doesn't grab Eve and say, no. God said, okay. And like I said, he doesn't whack that serpent on it. Everybody knows women want husbands to kill the snakes. Right? Try arguing with your wife. It's a good snake. Doesn't happen. We had a 4 foot, oh, it's not a king snake. What it is, it's a black and green guy.
Rat snake?
Probably. I mean, down in Georgetown. This thing was at least 4 feet long. And Randy had grown some asparagus stalks that were fairly thick. And this thing had just wrapped itself around her asparagus. So she's harvesting asparagus, and all of a sudden, there he is. So she comes in, you gotta kill this snake, gotta kill this. So I go out and look at it, and I go, that snake's not poisonous. I said, now you mess with it, it'll bite you. But this thing is keeping the rats, on our 10 acres of land and the mice away. I don't care, kill it. Okay.
Did it talk to her?
Your husband doesn't know what he's doing.
He's gonna tell you to kill him, not kill him.
Here's an apple. We did have an apple tree, by the way. The snake was never in the apple tree. Okay. What should Adam have done? Okay, he should have killed the snake. Okay. He should have talked to Eve. Maybe Adam has misrepresented God's commands. We don't know. What does Adam do?
Nothing.
Nothing. He stands there. Most likely there was a football game on, and he's got the remote. And Eve was talking to the snake, and he goes, "That's fine, honey." What is Adam's motivation here? He's just going to let Eve do it. He's not protecting her. He's not helping her. He's not standing in. He just lets it happen. Look at Genesis 3:17 if you've got it open, but I'm going to read it to you. This is when God is confronting Adam and Eve, right? Then to Adam he said, "Because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it," and then he goes on, "curses the ground for your sake." What was it that Adam did? He listened to Eve. You say that's a sin? No, he listened to Eve above God. That was the sin. Guys, listen to your wives. But if they're plotting to rob a bank, don't go along with it.
That would imply also that Adam had made up his mind as well, right? That he wanted the same thing that the serpent is seeking.
I think...
And didn't have the backbone to...
Well, no, I think what happens in verse 17, you've heeded the voice of your wife. The implication that I get, and it is an implication and it is my interpretation, is that Adam lets Eve go on, but at the moment when she holds out the fruit to him, he has a choice to make. And I can choose God, or I can choose the one other creature in all of the universe who's like me. Remember, all the animals have been brought before Adam. Monkey, chimpanzee, elephant, biological characterizations. None of them are human. And then Adam wakes up from a sleep one day after post-surgery, and there's Eve, and she's human. She's a female human, but she's human. And now he's in a position of having to choose God or the only other person in the whole wide world.
But he would have dominion over the serpent as well, right?
Absolutely, which is why he should have killed that thing. But he doesn't.
So decision making started, if he was nearby, when the serpent started.
Yeah, did the decision making start then? And what I would suggest to you is that the lack of decision making started then.
Complacency.
Complacency. So, if Adam is, let's find a nice bright color here to start with. Now let's do this one. If Adam is, as I said before, responsible, what happens when the eye of sin enters in is that Adam actually becomes irresponsible. And if Eve, and this is my word, if Eve is dependent on God and Adam for the decisions in her life, but she takes the role of decider, Eve becomes independent. And in the process, they wind up taking on the role of the other one. The woman becomes the leader, and the man becomes the follower. I've got so much to say about this. But let's consider this from a cultural standpoint first. In our culture today, ask anybody on the street, what are the most desirable characteristics of a woman?
Strong and independent.
Strong and independent. Okay. From my less than spiritual days, I used to love the Eagles, the pop group from the 1970s, for those of you too young to know. And they had a song entitled "Those Shoes." And they were talking about the shoes that were real popular in the 70s and 80s that women used to wear. Had kind of a medium heel, but they had straps that went around the ankles. Y'all remember? No, okay. Okay. Somebody does. And the song is, you've got to have your independence, but you don't know where to start. You want someone to talk to, but they just want to get their hands on you. Well, you can have whatever you choose. No, you can't do that once you start wearing those shoes. If you're going to attract a guy through the independent strength of your beauty and look at me, well, fine, you can do that. But don't expect him, if he's attracted by the way you dress, to actually act decent. You can have your independence, but don't expect it to turn out right. From a lost person standpoint, it's very revealing on the lyrics as to how the dynamic of the single dating scene actually works. Okay. Strong, independent. Okay. Now, what is the dominant characteristic of most young men growing up in our culture today? Come on, say it.
Lazy.
I'm sorry, what?
Lazy.
Lazy and irresponsible. So I read an article yesterday morning. What are the 5 most desirable characteristics women look for in men? Muscles and money did not make the list. It's strange. What did make the list? He has a plan for his life. He can actually talk to me, communicate. Okay? Well, I'm trying to remember the other 3 now. I thought I would remember them. But the idea of him having a plan for his life was, I thought, one of the most intriguing. That a woman wants a guy whose plan is not to live in his parents' basement and be the best Xbox player or PlayStation or whatever there is. Okay. I'll go ahead and mention this. Are any of you familiar with this term? Incel. I-N-C-E-L.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
I'm sorry?
So unfortunately, yes.
It's a made-up term. It's a shortened form of involuntarily celibate. And it refers to the guy who would like to have a relationship with a woman, but women just simply do not find him worth the effort. He's involuntarily celibate. Okay. Why? He's got no job, not going anywhere, doesn't know how to communicate. It's not so much that he's a nerd. Nerds rule the world, and nerds are attractive. I say that. Come on, work with me. It's the idea that there is no social or emotional capabilities whatsoever. And we say, oh, that's an exception to the rule. No, that's the natural consequence of Adam's sin. We are irresponsible. What's the hardest thing to get a guy to do in a relationship? Ladies? Say it.
Commit?
No, Jan, you can't mouth it. That's no fair. Dana?
I said commit.
Commit. Make a decision. We can't go through this 5 years of just whatever. And as a result, women are now trained to think, well, you have to sort of incrementalize him into a commitment. Right? We'll have sex on the third date. Maybe, oh, hey, we're going to move in together. Oh, okay. And we'll just sort of step by step slowly boil the frog of commitment until he finally says, okay, well, we might as well get married. You know what I mean by boil a frog? Yeah, you stick the frog in the pot, turn it up a little bit, turn it a little bit. Okay. And that's kind of the way women think they have to approach the idea of relationship, because the dominant theme for young men is be irresponsible. Be Peter Pan all your life and go find a Wendy to marry you. Women, on the other hand, are independent. They're told to be strong, independent. And yet the vast majority of women who work full-time jobs and have careers have stated over and over again, I would rather be at home with kids. I had at Social Security, there was a lady who was my supervisor. And her husband had a job, but she had a job. She made more money than him. His wasn't going anywhere. She was moving up the ladder. And she was this staunch feminist, but she said to me one day, I want to marry a guy who's rich enough that I can stay home. Now, let me give you an illustration. This is my favorite illustration of all time about irresponsibility and independence and how that actually works out and what it looks like. Okay? This is a true story from my Social Security days. And if I've used it before or you've heard it before, work with me. There were 4 ladies, right, who knew each other. They were friends, and as a result, well acquainted with each other. 4 ladies, 1 guy. And so what the guy would do, okay, is the first week of the month he would go spend at this lady's apartment and live there. The second week of the month he would go to this lady's apartment and live there. Yeah, you get the idea. Third week of the month, right? So every week of the month, he's rotating where to live. Now, these ladies all know each other, and they know what's going on. And they like it. Each one of these ladies, by this man, has a child. And so the first week of the month when the man is at this apartment, all of the kids come to that, are brought to that apartment. Dana's looking at me like I'm nuts. This is true.
What?
Yeah, all the kids, are the other three ladies bring their kids over to that apartment number 1. All 4 kids stay there. The husband babysits them, and the 4 ladies go off to their jobs. Now, consider for a moment, ladies, the advantage of this. You have a man, but he ain't sticking around but 1 week out of the month. That's about all you can stand him anyway, right? You've got the thing you really want most in life, a child. You've got a place to live, a nice apartment, and you've got a good job. What's not to like? You can have your independence. There's no irresponsible guy trying to tell you what to do. Your life works out just fine. What's not to like? And so the second week, all the kids go to this apartment down here, right? Third week, they're all over here. Fourth week, they're all over here. And the husband is just a professional babysitter who is not paid. But basically what he does is he gets to live at these apartments. Here, then here, and then here, and then here. So his food is provided, his board is provided. What does he do all day when those 4 kids are there and he's babysitting them? These are preschool age kids, by the way. So 4, 5, 6. But they're all about the same age. What does he do? Take a guess.
Nothing.
Video games, right?
Or things like it.
Computer, and drugs. I'm sorry? Yeah.
I said which one?
Which drug? I'm trying to remember. It was an injectable, and it eventually killed him. So I'm assuming heroin, but I don't remember that detail for sure.
Sorry, I'm a drug counselor. That's where my head went.
Yeah. Now, again, the moms know this. And the kids are used to this. The kids sit and watch TV, or the kids do whatever kids do, while dad is on the game or whatever he's doing. So yes, one day he's at one of these apartments and he injects himself with a little too much of whatever it is he's injecting and has a heart attack and dies. So I wind up taking survivor's claims for the children, okay, from all 4 of these ladies. It was the most bizarre, and I don't know how to describe it. I've had some bizarre cases, let me tell you, but that one sticks in my head.
Were all the ladies on drugs too?
I'm sorry?
Were all the women on drugs?
Oh no, the women were clean. He never hurt the kids, He fed them mac and cheese and hot dogs for lunch or whatever, something, but he took care of the kids. But then when the kids are taken care of and they were down for a nap or whatever, that's when he would do his injection, his high. So they know it, but they're clean. They're good, upstanding, moral, hard-working citizens of the world, the women. Okay. Now you tell me, according to the standards of independence and irresponsibility, what's wrong with that picture? Doesn't it fit? Here's what I want you to know. Based on our natural depravity, marriage should be impossible. Not difficult, impossible. We are all headed, men and women, in the opposite direction. So allow me to say something that would get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's apply this dynamic of irresponsibility and independence to the sexual relationship of a man and woman. Man doesn't want to commit, doesn't want the responsibility, doesn't really want children. The most irresponsible, sinful man, when it comes to sex, what does he want? Sex. That's it. Okay? That is not true of women. Women want a relationship. Women want, to a certain degree, romance. Right? What does an irresponsible man think of romance?
Means to an end.
Stupid. Well, I'm sorry, what?
Means to an end.
This means to an end. If I have to, you know. So if you're tired of that game, what sexual option makes the most sense for an irresponsible man?
The one you just said up there on the board.
Oh, the incel? Okay, now that...
No, the one, the illustration.
Oh, yeah, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can find that, I suppose. But even that comes with a responsibility of sorts. He's got to take care of the kids. He's required to a certain degree, I think, to clean up. And yeah, you get the Xbox and whatever. That's pretty cool. But most of you aren't going to find 4 women who are willing to do that, guys. Face it, that's a real oddity. What else makes irresponsible to the nth degree? Not an ounce of commitment or responsibility to you whatsoever, but you're driven by your hormones. What do?
Contraception.
I'm sorry?
Birth control.
Birth control. Again, makes sense. There is one problem with birth control. Even the best is about 98% effective. And so I was in a church one time where the ladies would go, "Oh yeah, that's my baby from the pill," and that doesn't always work. And you're still dealing with a woman who wants romance and commitment and emotional intelligibility.
Prostitution.
Prostitution, pornography, homosexuality. In Romans 1, Paul credits the homosexual behavior of the Gentiles to the fact that the men burned in their lust. Their lust is uncontrolled. Their lust is not held in check. It is irresponsible. A society which allows these two things to go unchecked will see the rise of homosexuality and pornography among men. Duh. Because a homosexual man can go find a place where there's other homosexual men and have all the hookups and all the sex he wants and never even know their name, and he doesn't care. There was an author by the name of Saul Bellow who was homosexual, who said that he probably had sex with over 2,000 different men who he never knew their name. Homosexuality is incredibly promiscuous. Now, take a woman who's independent, who's careful, who wants to plan for everything, the future. Her independence has run amok She wants nothing but safety, and in her view, okay, romance. Who knows the mind of a woman better than another woman? An irresponsible man doesn't know what you're thinking, right? Who does? Another woman. Interestingly enough, most lesbian relationships are built on romance. Kissing, hand-holding, whatever. Flowers, walking in the moonlight, and a sense of independence. Lesbians almost never have physical sexual relations. At least not according to the Journal of Psychology. Why? It's not important. That's second place, third at most. Definitely want children. But, lesbian bed death is a joke, but it's an accurate one. Don't care. So while homosexual men in their irresponsibility are pursuing a promiscuous one after another sexual experience, women, lesbians, are producing a romance that will last until the relationship breaks from the burden of trying to be romantic and then eventually enter into another romance. And so there's the serial romance, but generally not a physical relationship, or not very physical. Boy, I can't remember her name. Martina Navratilova was the tennis player. Y'all remember Martina Navratilova? Women's tennis player, top notch. I mean, maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest woman tennis player of all time. Still has records on the record book, never been broken. But obviously and openly lesbian. And there was, I can't remember her name, she was a model. And she left her husband to marry Martina Navratilova. And the marriage, of course, was not real. But they went into a church that was empty at the time, said some vows, walked out. And the model who had married Martina said, I knew it was only going to last 2 or 3 years until the romance wore off. But when we walked out of the church and the sun was shining through the stained glass and the pigeons flew up around us and everything was blue and green and beautiful, I knew this was the right thing to do. This is society. This is where you head without God. Next week we will come back and we will look at what God does to stop this. God comes in and He says, okay, I am going to do something here that's going to put an end to this trend. And there are restrictions and restraints that He puts on the man and on the woman. We'll deal with those in detail, and it will then set the stage for us to understand Ephesians 5, 1 Peter 3, Colossians 3. All right, any final questions? Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we confess to You that we do not understand the depth of our own sin. We have been restrained in that sin through Your own restraint of conscience and society and law, but especially, Father, by the work of Your Spirit in our hearts. We do not appreciate often, Father, how lost the lost person really is. So let us remember our own lostness, and let's, Father, by Your grace and mercy, help us to love the lost, to have compassion upon them, to recognize the plight and the danger and the misery of their lives, slaves to their own desires, and inherited a nature of depravity from our first parents. May we be good witnesses of Jesus Christ, that we may rescue some from their sin. We ask Your blessings now upon our worship. In Christ's name, amen.